What's popping, you set of legends? You know the script today. We have a certain player to discuss and a certain player's performance in the Champions League last night that's grabbing all of the headlines, along with a load of other news as well, which is exciting. I'm going to talk about, of course, Jadon Sancho's man of the match performance, which is giving a lot of people food for thought, a couple of people changing their opinions, people saying, you know, they should bring him back and get rid of Erik ten Hag and all this kind of nonsense. So I definitely want to get into that. We've also got bits on players returning from injury. We'll discuss who they are, but you can probably already see if you're on TikTok anyway. Bruno is a nominee for Player of the Month in the Premier League for April. Ineos still have faith in Erik ten Hag, according to a lot of reports coming out last night. And Marcus Rashford's sale impossible. So as always, on your afternoon news show, you've got loads of stuff to talk about, which is amazing, right? So please do smash that like button on the video. Hit the subscribe button as well if you're not. We're currently on, let me see what we're on, 4,867 subs at the minute. We're trying to hit 5k ASAP as soon as possible. So make sure you check that out. And just before I get into this Sancho thing as well, we have a live, so we're going to be live for the press conference in an hour or two. That's going to be a separate show. And we also have a live with James from the Muppeteers tonight. Anyone who's on Twitter, anyone who follows the guy knows he's absolutely bang on when it comes to news around Ineos and Man United, and he is well tapped in, let's just say. So I'm excited to get into that with Sam tonight. That's not going to be until 7 o'clock, but we have the press coming up at about 2 o'clock as well, I think. So, you know, content all day. And then if you're still looking for content, you know, in different angles, then make sure you check out the video we did on how United could line up next season. That was a pre-record, but the edit's really, really good, in my opinion. So, yeah, do check that out as well. But for today, stick with us at the minute. We're going to discuss Sancho. So, yeah, Dortmund obviously beat PSG 1-0 last night in the first leg of the semi-final. Mbappe was the obvious talking point before the game. But then Jadon Sancho became the talking point when it was finished because he put in a really, really good performance. Now, obviously, with United being knocked out of the same competition, it's a little bit painful because you're watching someone who couldn't really get into the team whilst we was, you know, in that campaign. And, you know, if you think about the teams that we played against, Copenhagen, Galatasaray, Bayern Munich, and look at how we performed, it was probably our most embarrassing performance. Well, I think it was our most embarrassing group stage performance ever. And a player who was isolated from the squad for very much of that campaign is now one step away from the final in Wembley, which is it's not embarrassing on United's part, but it's interesting. It gives you food for thought, doesn't it? And I think for many United fans, and Ten Hag in particular, most people, fans, whatever, agreed on the fact that it was probably the best decision that had to be made in terms of him going out on loan. Otherwise, he was just kind of sat there. It was getting a little bit stale. There was people asking questions about him constantly, including journalists. And then obviously you had the whole situation why it sparked off in the first place, where Sancho publicly criticised Ten Hag, releasing a statement on social media, and then left it on his page for a good few weeks. So basically standing by his point, and both of them being stubborn. Basically labelling Ten Hag a liar. You guys know the script anyway, but I'm just, you know, kind of going back through it to get like a recap. And it was all over, basically, like he was left out of the performance, left out of the squad, I think, against Arsenal, and he got asked why, and he said because he weren't training and applying himself properly. But more to the bigger picture, when you think about all the players that we've brought in the last decade or so, United have signed like world-class emerging talents, Premier League proven, European, non-European players. You name it, United have bought it. But so many of these players have come and instantly got worse. Why is that? Why does that happen to us? You know, you look at the recruitment, which is everyone knows has been the biggest problem for us. You know, for example, someone like Anthony Martial, who I'm going to talk about in a moment, right? Golden Boy, Ballon d'Or clause. You know, comes to us, he's patchy at best. He has, you know, the odd good season, but for the majority of the time, he's not been amazing. You look, Jadon Sancho was super talented at Dortmund, you know, highly regarded. We had almost a 2-year transfer saga over him. The stats he was putting out there in terms of like goal contributions and big chances created were up there with Messi and Muller and all these kind of world-class players. And then he comes to United, and it's like, it doesn't really work out. Same thing with Di Maria. Man of the match in the Champions League final for Real Madrid, comes to Manchester United, doesn't necessarily work out. Paul Pogba killing it at Juventus, comes to United, doesn't necessarily work out. I'm not blaming it all on United because these players also have individual traits as well. But one of the main reasons that these players haven't been given, not been given, they've been given time, but one of the reasons why they're not succeeding is because of the environment at United and all the exterior issues, with the club as well, and like certain personality traits. There's been some concerns over Jadon Sancho. So I suppose what I'm trying to say is, rather than getting muddled up, is that United don't do their due diligence when they're looking at a player. They'll look at maybe his ability, but they won't do background checks or like you could easily go on Wikipedia or whatever it is you want and look at Jadon Sancho's history. So when he came up through Watford, for example, there was quotes from youth coaches at the time saying he got bored very easily. He kind of needs to be stimulated. He didn't really adapt himself as much as he could in training. And then obviously Pep Guardiola was having back and forth with him at Man City. He had issues at Dortmund where he was turning up late for training. Same thing at Man United, him and Pogba at times. So again, it's not all one side of the coin. Sancho's played his part in this. But it was kind of clear from the day one when we signed him, they didn't really have any idea whatsoever how they would get the best out of him. It just seems like we signed him because it was a big name at the time. It was someone who United would usually sign, a fantastic British talent who's got abroad. But when you look at the type of player that he is, and last night was a perfect example of it, his strengths as a player are linking up with people, quick combinations. Now he's suddenly kind of dragged into situations where there's no runners and he's got to sprint past the full-back and, he needs pieces of the puzzle moving around him. That is the type of player that Jadon Sancho is. And at Dortmund, he gets that. At United, it doesn't. So, one, maybe it's a systematic thing. One, I don't think he works hard enough either in the Premier League. But clearly, it's something. There's something there, right? Because obviously, he's performing really well at Dortmund. But it's not all doom and gloom. I think, one thing this is going to do, him performing like this, is going to drive his valuation up first and foremost. So if Dortmund want to buy him performing like that, especially if he gets to a champion. I mean, imagine if Dortmund win the Champions League. They're definitely going to keep hold of him, aren't they? Especially with the prize money that they get from that as well. Like they'll be looking at him and yeah, we want to keep him. And I'm sure Sancho will do everything in his power to put a front up and say, I'm not going back to United. I want to stay here. But end of the day, we've got him on contract, so he's our player. So that's irrelevant. I think Ineos will probably take that approach with it as well. But you could tell that Man United is confidence was mega affected, and confidence in football is everything. If you could bottle it up and sell it to players, they would take it in a heartbeat because it means everything, especially for attacking players. I was looking at a couple of his stats actually last night. Sancho completed 12 take-ons against PSG, the most of any player in the semi-finals of a Champions League for 8 seasons. He created 3 chances, with one of them being considered a big chance when he slipped that pass in for Fulkrug. Who had a decent game himself, by the way. I like the look of him. But yeah, he seems to have that burst of pace that we never saw at United, unfortunately. For me, football has always been a simple game. You have 11 players who are all comfortable in the exact roles that they know that they're doing. You develop chemistry, you develop patterns, cohesion, and you have them playing on a regular basis. And that's how, I don't know, I always reference Liverpool, for example, when they won the Champions League. That team, week in, week out, you pretty much knew who was going to start, right? It would be, let's say, Salah, Firmino, Mane, Wijnaldum, Henderson, Fabinho, Robertson, Van Dijk, Matip, Trent, and Alisson. Yeah, that was the full team that they would start. Obviously, there'd be tweaks here and there, but you knew week in, week out, that was pretty much going to be the team, and they would play together a lot. So then the partnerships with Robertson and Mane, and then you had Trent and Salah, and the angles and rotations, they knew without even having to look at the player what was going to happen. Do you know what I mean? And United don't have that in a minute. Now, injuries have played a massive part, of course, because you have to keep chopping and changing your back four, and then the rhythm gets completely lost. So that is a huge, significant factor. But that's not to say it doesn't happen to other clubs as well. So it's not a full excuse, but I get this season why it has been patchy and why we've struggled. But I just think he needs some consistency, some game time, and maybe it doesn't suit the Premier League. Maybe it doesn't. But it's definitely giving Ineos food for thought. It's giving fans food for thought. You've already seen us making some big changes at the club. And I think with now Jason Wilcox and Dan Ashworth leading on the recruitment front, Sancho is going to be the latest example of, kind of players that they need to look at with these recruitment issues and stuff. So I think obviously they will do their due diligence. The type of guys that they are. Anyone who's spoken about Dan Ashworth, he is an extremely detailed man. So I trust him in that aspect. But I think it's going to be interesting, how they deal with it. Have fans changed their opinion? Have you guys changed your opinion more to the point? Get in the comment section. I put a poll up in the YouTube saying, would you take him back after the performances you've seen him for Dortmund? Would you play him on the right-hand side? And when you look at, how Anthony's been doing for us. On the flip side of this debate, it's just because he's doing it for Dortmund doesn't mean he will be amazing for United. He's been really poor for us consistently. He's been late to training multiple times, refused to apologise and play for 3 months. Super talented, but you need more than that in individual play. You need dedication and a winning mentality. And if you had all them three, I think he'd be a top player for us. Valentine is saying Sancho is better than all United's attackers, to be honest. I think he's more talented, but he doesn't do it on a more consistent basis, in my opinion. Like Garnacho, for example, week in, week out, gives you everything off the ball that you need, and going forward is exciting. Now, obviously, his finishing and passing isn't as good as Jadon Sancho, I would probably say. But in the system that we have in a minute, Garnacho performs better in it. It's the manager. Look at Rashford. He'll go. Players we lost Ronaldo. How do I vote for player of the month? It's on the Premier League website, I think. I'm going to dive into that in a moment. But yeah, I'm going to leave you some questions with Jadon Sancho, because I really want to get like a general consensus on this. And again, I'll get into the YouTube comments as well. Does he have a chance at United? Does he still have a future, in your opinion? Does he suit the Premier League? Or is it just a European thing? And which team could he go to now and really flourish, do you think? Like, what team suits him? I want to test the level of intelligence here in the chat. Where would he go and really, really do well, given the type of player that he is? I have a couple of teams in mind, but I'd want to know what you guys are thinking. I don't rate Garnacho. I think he's awful. Okay, that's interesting. Charlie Malman says, cannot have a player who lets his ego get out of hand and not perform for the club. Sorry, one good game does not clear him of what he's done towards club, fans and manager. Great point, Charlie. Dan Errington says, pressure at Dortmund is different to pressure at United. Yeah, it's concerning for me, if anything, that he goes there and starts performing. Do you know what I'm saying? Lucky Singh says, no players bigger than my club. Absolutely. 100%. True Cushman says, yeah, him and Højlund, Ahmad as a front three would be something else. I like that balance as well. Because Garnacho, you've got your direct kind of player, one who can run in behind as well. Not as much as Rashford does, but he still can do it. He's quick enough to do it. Højlund, obviously, we know what kind of player, what kind of striker he is. And then Ahmad as well can drift central, can link up play like a Jadon Sancho. Yeah, and when you spend that amount of money on Ahmad anyway, like, why would you not start him? Do you know what I mean? I reckon Sancho will do amazing at Barca. Yeah, Barca was the first club I thought of, to be honest with you. Lots of rotation, lots of possession, good chance creation, a solid forward in Lewandowski up top. Yeah, I think Barca would be really, really good for him. Is Cancelo still at Barca? Oh, no, he's on loan, wasn't he? So he's there to the end of the season. It'd be interesting to see what happens with him, actually. Garnacho needs to stop being selfish, 100%. We did a video yesterday on Rasmus Højlund saying 10 reasons why he was struggling, and that was one of the big talking points, that the wingers are way too selfish. Antony, Rashford, Garnacho don't supply him nowhere near enough, and he'd probably be in double figures if they did. So, yeah, 100% agree with that. Dan saying no future at United, and I think a club like Atletico would suit him. Atletico Madrid's an interesting one. I don't think him and Simeone would get on, personally, in my opinion. Does he go to the Euros as well, or is it too late for him? Is he still a door open, a gap, maybe? Do we think? Or where have I put? I'll put my drink in the fridge, never mind. Yeah, what do we think? Because obviously you've got Bukayo Saka, haven't you, on that right-hand side. I don't think Southgate's ever rated him. He's never really turned up for England when he's had the opportunity, so I don't think so, but it's interesting, isn't it? Yeah. Cancelo and Felix are going to start at Barca next season. Yeah, with them kind of players, I can imagine Sancho fitting right in. But, I mean, Barca have their own kind of financial problems at the minute, so I'm not entirely sure what's going to go on there. Right, let's move the conversation on then, because I wanted to talk about Anthony Martial and Johnny Evans. Why do we want to talk about Anthony Martial and Johnny Evans? That is because they are back in training today. There was some pictures coming out. Now, it's not the most exciting news ever, and people be like, well, how long for? And that's the exact same question that I had in my head. You know, Martial coming back is fantastic, but he has a really, really bad injury issue, and so does Johnny Evans as well. Not as bad, but Johnny Evans is 35. It's very easy for him to pick up a little niggle, do you know what I mean? So, both of them are back in training. It's nice for us for two reasons, in my opinion, because one, you know, Casemiro, for all his strengths at centre-back, how we can kind of play like a quarterback and step into midfield, and he does get exposed sometimes. And Johnny Evans obviously has a bit more experience and tactical nous as a centre-back, and the partnership as well with Harry Maguire as well, because we used to play together at Leicester. So it's nice for him to come back in. I never thought I would be saying that during this season at all about Johnny Evans, but he has been decent when he's played. You can't really lie. And then Martial as well, if we want to give Højlund a rest, that 20 minutes towards the end of the game, bring something different in there, that'd be nice. But I understand that the majority of United fans are kind of washed their hands with Martial from what I've seen online and the way people talk about him. But you need depth, especially near the end of the season when your legs are getting tired, the way we play. I'm sure Højlund will be happy as well to, you know, kind of relieved for the rest and recuperation, because he has been quite literally the only fit forward this season. The only one. So, yeah, I'm sure he's buzzing about it. And yeah, them two are back, so let me know your thoughts on that. Make sure you drop us a follow as well on TikTok. I've seen Andrew just has there. Appreciate that, brother. Hit us up on YouTube as well. We're on 4,869 subs at the moment, so we're 31 subs of 4,900, and then we've got 100 to go until we hit 5k, and that is because of you lot, so thank you very much for that. And check the link out in the description. We've got so much content today. We've got Eric Ten Hag's press conference at 2 o'clock, and then we've got a live with James from the Muppeteers as well, who we're going to speak to him about Ineos and transfers and everything that's going on this summer. So that's going to be fascinating because he has a really good insight to that. That's at 7. And yeah, there's loads of other videos on the channel as well if you're stuck for content, so make sure you check them out. True Cushman says Sancho never a solid run of starting games to establish himself. If he had the Anthony or Garnacho minutes, he'd have a better output than them. I suppose that's a good point. I would like to see him with the run of games under his belt. Soupy Special says, what time? For what? The Ten Hag press conference is at 2. And then the show with James from the Muppeteers tonight is at 7 o'clock. So, yeah, we'll put it all on socials anyway, like we always do. So, if you guys want to come and give that a listen, then please do. Right, moving on to Bruno Fernandes then, because he has received a nomination for Player of the Month in April. Now, this is alongside Gvardiol, Havertz, Mateta, Pickford, and Palmer. Now, before I dive into Bruno's performance and his stats and all that kind of stuff, who do you think deserves it out of them players? Again, let's get a general consensus and see what people are saying. Bruno, Gvardiol, Havertz, Mateta, Pickford, Palmer. Who deserves it? I think Mateta. I know this is a proper low-key underground shot, but I think Mateta's been fucking phenomenal for Palace whenever I've watched him. He is flying at the minute. Gvardiol's done decent, but he wouldn't be my pick. Havertz is another one who's, you know, he's changed a lot of people's minds, hasn't he, at Arsenal, I think. The way people were talking about him, including myself, to be fair, you know, at the start of the season, I was like, I'm not sure about that signing. Not sure about that signing at all. 60 million quid, 70 million quid. I was like, oh, I don't know. And then, you know, it's weird the way Arsenal set up that, like, especially defensively, they play with like a 4-4-2, but like 2 false nines. So they'll have like fucking, I don't know, obviously there's rotation in there as well, but they'll have like Ødegaard and Havertz as the false nines, Saka and fucking hell, who's the left winger? Saka and Trossard or Martinelli, whoever it is, as your wingers, and then Rice and Partey, I think it was in the last game, which is 2 defensive midfielders. Defensively, they're so hard to beat, but then the fluidity in how they attack and the rotations, and it kills me to say, but it's really nice to watch. I'm a United fan, but they are really nice to watch when they play football. So yeah, I think Havertz definitely. Havertz, Mateta, and Palmer would be my picks. I can't pick between them, to be honest with you. Palmer, I think, has been fantastic. Obviously scores a lot of penalties, but you still have to score him. I remember was it against Everton? The little nutmeg, the flick, and then just the bottom corner. He's such a good player. So between them three, I would probably put it. But again, at least now England, I've got so much young talent. It's unbelievable coming through. Hopefully yeah, that's a great point. How did Sancho send shots with his performance? Take that, Ten Hag. That's how he sends shots. Do you think the pressure is getting to Arsenal players more than Man City? I don't know. I think they're dealing with it better this season. I think they look a lot more robust. The North London derby was a massive one to hold on to that. I thought they was going to bottle it again, but yeah, I don't know. I think they could win it. I think Tottenham might, because Tottenham are a bogey team for City. I think they could grab a point there or something. I think Arsenal might just win it, but it's shit either way. Whatever happens in it. Sean, bit late tuning in. Hope I've not missed too much. Just a bit on Sancho, Martial, and Evans. Dan saying tight call between Bruno, Palmer, and Havertz. I mean, yeah, Bruno's up there as well. Pravav is in the chat. Hey there, guys. Hope you're good, Pravav. We do have a members video that dropped yesterday, so if you've missed that, do go check it out. You're a member, so you get that for free, of course. But yeah, just focus on Bruno Fernandes slightly, just a little bit. How impressed have you been with him for the past couple of weeks? Because he's a divisive player, I want to say. He splits opinions sometimes. Some people get really frustrated with him, which I completely understand, because that was me for the first 6 months of the season. But you have to say, the past 4 or 5 weeks, he has been really, really good. Scored against Chelsea, scored against Liverpool, 2 goals against Bournemouth, 2 goals and an assist against Sheffield. Been breaking his own individual personal records for chances created in a single game. I think he got like 9 against Sheffield. And this is the player that we signed. When he first came in, he was such a revelation. You know, coming in, breaking Lampard's record as a midfielder. Just a killer with assists, shots from outside the box. And he seemed to have lost his way a little bit this season. And I think with Bruno, it's slightly down to the fact that he's so focused on doing everything for the team and trying to make sure everything's in order that you almost lose focus on what you're there, what your job is. You know, you shouldn't have to worry about everyone else's job. For example, a perfect example, of this. Galatasaray game, I think it was. McTominay loses his man, doesn't track back. Bruno has to do it, fouls the guy, fucking screams at McTominay, and then they score a free kick. Like, his priority should be solely focused on supplying the attackers, chance creation, contributing himself, kind of ordering the team about tactically, quick in-game thinking. And I think he's slightly been taken away from that with the way the season's just gone and the way the season's gone, the last season under Ole in particular. But it's nice to see him shining again. And obviously with him getting a nomination for Player of the Month, it shows that his hard work's paying off. So absolutely buzzing for him. And hopefully it continues, because we're going to need him. Moving on to the next topic. Ineos put faith in Eric. So this is coming out from The Athletic. Ineos view that Man United executive team did not provide Erik ten Hag the greatest chance to succeed. He may continue as United's next manager next season due to a lack of clear alternatives, and also the cost of firing him and hiring a replacement, which is very interesting and going against the grain of what a lot of journalists have been saying. I remember Ratcliffe saying in his interview as well, I think with the BBC, that United have had some fantastic managers at the club, but they've also failed because of the environment. So if he does stay, that's fine, but you have to change the way that we're playing football if he does. You can't go into next season playing the way we have been doing. It won't work with fans. It just will not stick with him. They won't accept it. Because that is the biggest issue with a lot of people at the moment. So, yeah, if he does stay, fine. If you want to put trust in him and give him 6 months under a new umbrella, I'm not going to absolutely go against it. But if he's playing this fucking proactive, direct, which we call chaotic, naive football, he ain't the one for me, personally. So, yeah. Throwing away next season, then keeping that clown. Oh, God, if they keep Ten Hag, I'm skipping the season. Yeah, well, this is coming out from The Athletic, who obviously are very credible. If Ineos want to, I think a lot of it comes into it financially as well. I think they're looking at it probably cost them 10, 15 million to sack a manager. There's a lot of managers who are starting to go to different clubs now. You're going to have to pay a manager to come in. I think one key thing in this, and this sounds like an obvious point, but one key thing in this is the window. So if we start signing players and Ten Hag is still here, then he's going to stay for the season. Because you don't go 2 months through the summer, hire a load of players that he wants, and then at the start of the season you go, right, you're gone, Ten Hag. Because then the players who have just signed have gone, well, I've just fucking come here. What do you mean? He's gone. And people will lose their heads. And yeah, I think Gary Neville referenced this on Stick to Football when, he was thinking when he was obviously making decisions at Salford, with the manager and stuff, and it's like you never do it, straight after a transfer window or whatever. You ideally want to do it at the end of the season. So I suppose we'll find out in due course, regardless, by when's the FA Cup finals? It's 25th of May. So end of May, I think you'll definitely know who the new coach is going to be. He doesn't deserve it at all. Tic-tac saying new coach, new players, too much money. Exactly. To be fair, with the new boardroom now, they might keep him and work with him. Potentially, yeah. Charlie saying the only thing with the manager, Ineos themselves have said they will talk to the manager after the FA Cup. They're never ever going to say it before an FA Cup. I mean, they could do it with Van Gaal and just get rid of him even if he wins it. I honestly don't know. They're going to stay tight-lipped on it. They're not going to let anything leak out whatsoever, and they'll be pretty strong on that. So, yeah. Just the last thing I want to discuss, and again, this is coming out from Neil Custard, and as a journalist, there isn't anyone more who I dislike than Neil Custis from The Sun. But he's putting out there that Marcus Rashford will resist any attempt by Manchester United to sell him this summer. Again, we've seen multiple reports around Rashford, and we know what everybody thinks about him. First and foremost, I wouldn't listen to Custard on anything, but we are seeing multiple reports. He's not the only one who's putting stuff out there about Marcus Rashford. I mean, in a sense, you can't sell all of your squad, right? There's people that want rid of Rashford, Casemiro, someone like a Maguire, let's say, for example, a McTominay. Some people are even saying sell Bruno, Antony, Shaw. Like, you can't get rid of all your squad. You know what I mean? They're going to keep some senior players and some players that people have been a little bit upset with in terms of their performances and stuff. So I always thought he was going to stay, and I never thought he'd go. I think his contract situation makes it fucking really tricky. £300,000 a week. Maybe PSG might shock us and come in. If Mbappe leaves, they might look at Marcus. I think he's the perfect replacement. And honestly, I could see Marcus going to the French league and actually scoring 20 goals easily. If Lacazette can go there and be one of the top goal scorers on 28, Rashford can do it. 100% Rashford can do it there. He's still talented, so yeah. But just a little last thing there on Marcus Rashford. I know I said it at the start of the show and midway, but I just have to repeat. We will be live for Ten Hag's press conference. That is at 2 o'clock. It's currently 12:30, so in an hour and a half again, I'll be live on here. We're live with the Muppeteers from 7 o'clock discussing Ineos, transfer strategies, everything. Everything we can eke out of it with me and Sam are going to. And he's, when it comes to knowledge on United and Ineos side and all that kind of stuff, he's 100% bang on with that. And then there's some pre-records on the channel as well if you want to go check them out, how United could line up next summer. Yeah, loads of stuff. So, yeah, as always, please do hit that subscribe button. If you're live on TikTok right now when you're watching this live, please do click the link in the description for the YouTube channel, Real Red Stock. We're getting closer and closer to 5K, and it would be amazing if you could kind of join us on that journey. But appreciate anyone, regardless if you subscribe or whatever it is. Appreciate you watching and tuning in. My voice is going, so I'm going to head off. Take it easy, everyone. Hope you have a wonderful day, and hopefully I'll see you for the press conference, yeah? See you soon.